for you is something that was requested by some friends of mine on Facebook, where they were asking for a comparison between independent trucking and Lyft and Uber, but financially. That video is posted, and you can view that video only on Patreon. It's only available to my Patreons on The Stress Free Driver for $5 a month. I got some other, right now I've got 9 posts. There will be many posts added in the future. This video will be available, and if you're watching it, you know that it's available for free on stressfreedriver.com, also on YouTube, rather. Dark Horse number 2 REIGN, Dark Horse 2 Rain drivers. Just a little bit, just a quick summary about what Stress Free Driver is all about. It's about stress education, obviously, coaching, tips, and strategies for the professional driver. Trying to help people develop resiliency. This is a tough industry, no matter what you do in terms of professional driving. But a lot of these concepts can be applied to anybody, really, in any profession. But again, this is something that people wanted to see, and I think it's fascinating. Stress is any reaction. It could be a good reaction or a bad reaction, but today we're going to be talking about the bad reactions, and it's really, the term is distress, and some examples of distress, some of the emotional things that we feel inside of us: fear, anxiety. We get irritable, we get angry. It results in things like decreased sleep and concentration and memory, and we get very moody sometimes, and what it ends up resulting in are those things right there. Conflict in our relationships, trouble communicating, and we could end up losing our careers, if not a decrease in business. And so it's very important that we are aware of some of these things and how it can affect us. And so to get started, the first thing I wanted to talk about is something that's near and dear to everybody, and I think it's what's the difference in gross sales and net? And I did that video already. It's a significant increase from trucking in terms of what you can make in a much shorter amount of time than Uber and Lyft. I made more money, a lot more money. You have to watch that video. Made a lot more money in independent trucking in 11 days, my best 11 days, than my best 31 days in Lyft and Uber. You gotta watch that video to check that out. And so, in terms of a comparison, just money wise, what I'm taking home, I would definitely give the nod to trucking. And the next category down, in terms of the environments that you're in, over the road trucking, we're talking about over the road, not local trucking. Local trucking would be different. I don't have any experience in that. I've only done over the road as an independent owner and operator. And what I was using obviously was a step deck attached to this truck. Not a step deck, but a gooseneck, but it's the same height as a step deck. And what ends up happening is you end up in a lot of environments that are unknown, because you're going to locations that you don't know, versus with Lyft and Uber, you're going to be in known locations. And that can be a good or a bad thing. I mean, in terms of the adventure, it is a lot of fun going to different places. I had a lot of fun doing that. But in terms of comfort, knowing where I'm at, it's practically impossible to get lost in the city. Um, I'd give the nod to Lyft and Uber. Um, and then the next thing, let's go down to like sleeping arrangements. That's just, most people never think about that. I had a bed installed in this truck. I made a video on that. That's available at Dark Horse Terrain on YouTube. Most people don't think about that as affecting how they're going to handle stress and pressure. But I got to tell you, I mean, that's huge. Your sleeping arrangements are huge. I built a very nice bed in my truck, and I slept extremely well on the road because it's quiet, it's dark. I always choose places that are quiet and dark. I usually slept extremely well. So, contrary to what people might think, sleeping at home, obviously with Lyft and Uber, you wouldn't think that I slept very well or that I would sleep so soundly on the road, but I actually did. But at the end of the day, it is nice to be home in my bed with my wife. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. I'd rather be in my house than on the road. So I have to give that to Lyft and Uber in terms of stress. Eating, I mean, this is pretty self-explanatory. I don't think this takes too much to think about. But eating on the road is you don't know when you're going to be able to eat sometimes. And this is spot market freight. So spot market freight and contracted freight are very different animals. So you're just going from spot to spot. And I'll talk about that down here with business relationships. You're just going from spot to spot, making contracts with different brokers and shippers on the road, on the fly. So eating is in that type of environment is kind of tough. So it's a little bit more expensive too on the independent trucking side. You do get you are able to claim that on your taxes as well. I can claim that on my taxes with Lyft and Uber as a business expense. But in terms of convenience and health, it's not really close. Social. So this is another area that I don't think there's anything quite like this. I don't think there's any other owner operators with quite my skill set, or the ability to articulate what any of this means in a useful way. And I hope that you'll support me doing that on Patreon on the Stress Free Driver, because there's a lot more to come, and your participation helps me stay motivated to do it. I've got 4 patrons right now that I really, really appreciate. And hopefully we'll get some donations and other projects going that motivate me more to do analyses like this. But the social aspect of being over the road is very important. We are social animals. I wrote an article on stressfreedriver.com. That's the free site. So on the free site, you'll see the ties that bind us. That article, I had a lot of fun writing that and picking a picture for it, because it was during Father's Day 2019, and it was with my father and my brothers. My whole family was there, and it was fantastic. I also got to spend during that same time period, I got to spend, well, not during the summer, but in the fall, I got to spend a lot of time with some other friends from my high school, Milton Hershey School. But that was very, very important to me, and it's something that's always been important to me. And a lot of people do not take that into consideration when they think about trucking, the effect that it's going to have on your stress or your ability to stay resilient. We're social animals, and you get very, very isolated out there, and a lot of people get depressed and especially depression. And it's not something we talk about a lot, and I think we should go more into that, how much it affects people on the road. But oddly and interestingly enough, here's the thing that's interesting between trucking and Lyft and Uber on the social aspect, is that I met up with people I hadn't seen in 30 years. I met up with a friend of mine in Georgia twice, 3 times, Eric Mason and his family. I met up with Dave Slaughter and his wife, Michelle, in Georgia as well. They're near Atlanta. Both of them are in Georgia, but I met up with them multiple times, and I met up with other people as well. I met up with a good friend of mine from high school out in San Diego, and his family. I stayed out in San Diego for 2 weeks last December. So this time last year, in 2018, I was out in San Diego, stuck because of trucking, but I couldn't find any freight, and some other issues I was having. And spending that time with them was very, very special, because otherwise I would have had to deadhead back, and I really didn't know. I knew some other people out there, but it was great to be in such a supportive environment. So it is kind of surprising that I'm going to choose the social aspect. Now, the other people that I hooked up with, another good friend of mine down in Naples, Florida. I was in Miami twice. The second time, I don't think I got to meet up with him, but the first time I went to Miami, I got to meet up with him. So the social aspect for me, because I know a lot of people in a lot of different places, it's very, very special. I got to meet up with my auntie when she lost her son. I was going to Miami. I was in Dallas. I could have went straight to Miami, but instead I went to Nashville because I wanted to meet with her and some of my other family. Since I couldn't attend the funeral, I was actually in Miami, I think, the day of the funeral. So from a social aspect, I had some resources available to me that, some other people may not have, and that's very special to me. So surprisingly, the social aspect is going to go to independent trucking. Now, weather-wise, I think this one's pretty self-explanatory too. It's not that surprising to think that I'm gonna pick local Lyft and Uber, because being on the road in very, very bad weather, cold, hot, windy, rainy, it's no joke. I mean, you could be in real danger. And plus, you can always just, no matter what it's doing at home, you can always pretty much get yourself home without too much trouble. When you're on the road 1,000 miles from home, that's not going to happen. And I think the furthest I've been from home has been between 1,300 and 1,500 miles. Been to Iowa, Nebraska, Montana, Wyoming, San Diego, Miami, Philly, and just about everywhere in between. So the weather aspect definitely goes to Lyft and Uber. Business relationships. This section is going to have its own video. The Lyft and Uber side. The stuff in here, so I talked to you a little bit already about the spot market. The spot market freight is just going from spot to spot. You have to have specialized knowledge and some experience with with types of freight, securing that freight, both from a negotiation standpoint and securing it on your trailer, you better have some experience or get people on the phone, and which is exactly what I did. You've got to know how to deal with brokers, shippers, specific lanes where that freight travels, because that depends on how much you're going to bid on that freight. You got to know your operating expenses and your profit margins. You better have reliable internet access to do all that. I need a dispatcher to do that. I can't do all of this and dispatch myself at the same time. Dispatching is a whole nother video in terms of stress. It is a whole nother video in terms of communication, and I'm gonna look forward to doing that. You need patience. You have to trust the person, the people that you're dealing with. You better have great communication skills, written and spoken. And if you're not bookkeeping and you don't have a tax accountant, good luck. Like, good luck. You're not going to make it. You got to do your truck maintenance, obviously, and time management. Now, any one deal in independent trucking that goes bad, and you could lose your business, you're going to lose significant gross sales. Okay, that's just not the case with Lyft and Uber. Of course you have to have patience and trust and time management, community. Of course you have to have those things written and spoken, but spoken more than written, with your clients that you have. You're taking from A to B. Bookkeeping is important, but it's a lot less important. I could lose 1, 2, 3. I could have 1, 2, or 3 bad runs, and it means basically nothing versus trucking. Your career may not end in trucking, but it's just not going to go well for you in terms of gross sales and your net. You could ruin relationships too. You don't want it. You don't want that. Now, the last thing we'll talk about is safety, in terms of personal safety and accidents. And I think in terms of accidents, or if you have an accident in a commercial truck, the implications are way more important that you not be at fault than on the Lyft and Uber side. Is there a better chance that you would have an accident in a commercial truck? I don't know the answer to that question, but what I can tell you is that your perception of danger is decreased, probably likely to the fact that I'm in a known location, like I was talking about before. In a known location, I know the routes for the most part, in and around the city, and so my perception of danger is much, much less, even dealing with my personal safety, versus when I'm in Houston, I'm in some of these other places, I just don't know people I'm dealing with, so my perception is decreased over here. So I have less stress, a lot less stress. What I'm really, really interested now in is hearing about what you think of this video, and I want to hear more. I need some feedback. I need to hear what your ideas are about what I should do for the future. So I appreciate you watching. Please support me on Patreon if you can, and I'll do a lot more of this type of analysis. Thanks a lot, and I appreciate you. Okay, so tallying all this up, the gross sales on the independent trucking side, I give a check to that. Social aspect has been awesome with traveling around the country and meeting up with friends and family. Has also been awesome, so I'll give a check to that. But on the Lyft and Uber side, you've got many, many advantages, and this is for me in terms of stress. My personal safety at the bottom, business relationships, all these things are so much easier to manage with Lyft and Uber as opposed to trucking. There's much less risk in terms of managing business relationships and all those things that I listed. Not as much. Oh, from a social side, something I didn't talk about is that, yeah, it's a lot of fun interacting with passengers, and I'll talk some more about that in later videos. It's just incredible sometimes, the interactions you're able to have. So, we got a lot of checks on the Lyft and Uber side, so I'm going to give Lyft and Uber the edge